to our second annual Mega Wellness Summit, where we are transforming lives one aha moment at a time. I'm your host, Nikki Jensen, and thank you so much for tuning in and sharing this event with your friends and family. Today's subject is one that can be a bit taboo. Well, at least in my world it has been. We're talking about sex! When I was growing up, we didn't talk about sex, and even until this day, it's still a subject that is slightly squeamish for me. So I know many women out there who suffer from low libido and really don't enjoy sex. You know, for the men who are listening to this interview right now, this is for you too. It's good for you to understand what your wife might be going through. So welcome, Dr. Keesha Ewers, to Mega Wellness Summit. Hello, how are you?
I'm great, and I'm so excited to be here to make this topic non-squeamish for you, Nikki.
Right.
It's time.
It is time. I know. I know. Anyway, it is definitely one of those subjects. Okay, this is where I'm coming from. I'm just going to put this out there because this is why it's squeamish for me. And this is quite another taboo subject is molestation and rape, and those things have been present, those words have been present in my life growing up. And so we didn't necessarily talk about sex as a good thing. We talked about sex as a bad thing. So there's been a lot of negative feelings or energy around sex for me. So that's where I'm coming from when I say it's a bit squeamish. So I hope that you can enlighten us all. And, you know, for those that identify with me on that, who cannot find their libido, who cannot find the joy in sex, I really hope that this is going to be very enlightening for you. I know that it will be because we're talking to Dr. Keesha. You can't not be. And so that this is an exciting conversation. I don't want to turn this into a, you know, negative thing. I want to really enlighten women.
Well, I don't even look at you know, this as turning it into a negative thing, Nikki. What you did was you took it into reality right away, and I so appreciate that because sex is the time when we're the most vulnerable in our lives. Intimacy means into me see. It is an invitation for someone to see into you, and you're opening yourself up in the most intimate way, and you have to be vulnerable in order to be intimate. And so this is a really important thing, and you immediately went into that space that is that vulnerability space. I was sexually molested when I was 10 by the vice principal of my elementary school. I tried to tell people around me that it was happening, and no one knew really what to do with it. First of all, some didn't believe me, and others didn't understand what I was trying to say. And so I also had that. I had that. 1 in 4 girls are sexually abused. That's reported. So that means probably many, many more. This is the reality for so many women and men in civilization today, you know, on the planet. So to ignore it or to put it into a box that says this is making it a taboo subject or a negative subject is actually invalidating the reality for so many people. I want to start there. When you've had that trauma in the past, everybody has had some kind of trauma. And the way that I talk about this is a scale of trauma. So, for example, you can read in the news about someone from, let's say, Syria, okay, that has watched their house get blown up and their family killed or their mother and sister raped or just horrible, horrific things. And then you say to yourself, wow, I've never had anything bad to happen to me compared to that, right? Well, then, you know, I'm a psychotherapist in addition to my medical practice, and so what I see is that people will then devalue their experience or invalidate their experience. And the way this came to me was one day I was sitting on the steps taking a splinter out of my daughter's finger. She had to have been like 8, 9, or 10. She wasn't tiny. And I had just come from the hospital, and that day had been a particularly poignant one because I had this patient that I had for several days in a row who was 2 years old, had leukemia, was missing all the hair on top of her head and an arm. And I had to start an IV that day in a scalp vein on her forehead. She hadn't even flinched, didn't even flinch when I started an IV in her head. And then I came home, and my daughter had a splinter, and she was screaming like I was killing her, taking this little tiny piece of wood out of her finger as a needle. And I remember rocking back on my heels, looking at her with this love and compassion and thinking, thank goodness that this is the worst thing that you've endured in your life, that you can scream over this still.
Yeah.
So what happens is when people are traumatized and they get to the point where they start to suppress it, or they disassociate from their bodies, they cut off from that part of themselves because it's too painful, they take that into adulthood. So if we're sexually traumatized when we're younger, or we're frightened of it because there's been so much talk about it, or we know somebody, or whatever, we see a movie, it doesn't matter. But sex, maybe over the pulpit at our church, is talked about as a sin enough that we start to say, oh, this is bad, right? And so we begin to cut our head off from our bodies. And when the head's in charge and just kind of dragging the body along behind it, nothing good comes from that in the body. The body then has to scream to get attention. So if your head and your heart and your mind and your heart and your head and your body are not linked, then we get all kinds of problems in our bodies. This is where women start having painful sex, right? Or they have no libido, or they try to avoid it at all costs and get triggered if their partner does something that they feel is either unsafe or that's not honoring them in some way, and their partner's just kind of going, what? I don't know what I did, So there are all these relationship interactions that can come from this when there's trauma in somebody's background. So this is a libido killer. Did you know that the number one barrier for libido is actually marriage?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Absolutely. I can sort of see why.
Yeah, because why? We have to be vulnerable with our partner too. And then if we don't feel like women, and this is a stereotype that I'm about to say, it's gender stereotyping what I'm doing right now. And so I want to acknowledge that right away. But the larger percentage of women desire emotional connectivity with their partner before they want to be sexually intimate. Now, that can be reversed, and it can be the same for men. Men can have the desire for emotional connectivity before they feel fit, so that they want to have physical intimacy. So, I just did a gender bias thing, but it is true that the larger percentage of each of these genders, girls want to have emotional connection and boys want to have physical connection. And so if girls feel like they are not getting their emotional needs met, then they don't feel like having sex. And boys, if they don't feel like they're having enough sex, will not be emotionally connected to their partners. So there we are in a stalemate, right?
Yeah.
We have this problem. And so that's why marriage becomes one of the biggest barriers to libido and great sex, is because this polarization can happen. And it's, of course, made worse if you've got trauma in your background and you're not actually looking at it and seeing that it's affecting you still today. So that's called high desire partner and low desire partner, or mismatched sexual desire. So the way past that is to acknowledge it and say, oh, I see. I want you to sit with me and talk to me about your day, and you want to come home and just read the newspaper, and then you want to actually have sex. And I'm saying, forget about it, dude. I'm going to work, I'm bringing home the bacon, I'm frying it up in a pan, and I'm looking hot at the same time, and you're not making eye contact with me or talking to me, and you want to get in bed and do what? And so this is what I hear women say all the time, and they wind up in my office saying, I have no libido, I need bioidentical hormone replacement.
Oh, my gosh.
And so I'll say, okay, well, let's do some testing and see where your hormones are and what's going on. And then when they settle into their chair and they say, okay, she's going to give me what I want, finally I'm getting what I need, and they'll kind of relax. And then I start asking simple questions like, do you like your partner? And do you know, Nikki, so often, tears.
Yeah. Do you like your
and
partner?
I'll say, yeah, so what's happening for you right now? And I'll get, well, he had an affair 5 years ago, or,
oh, gosh.
Yeah, or he never, I have to do everything in the house and he never connects to me and I just feel so alone. I feel like if he died tomorrow, I wouldn't even notice. Or, things, there are all these different things. I know one person started crying and said he has a gambling problem and he put our house up as a gamble and we lost it, and so I don't trust him. All these things, a porn addiction, whatever, you name it. He's unattractive to me now. I don't feel physically attracted. These are all things that taking bioidentical hormones are not going to fix.
Okay.
Right?
Wow.
This is relationship issues.
Yeah.
And so when we start talking about libido, low libido causes relationship dissatisfaction, and relationship dissatisfaction causes low libido. So this is where that intimacy and vulnerability, and there's another word I'm going to use called willingness, is actually the key. So there was a study that was done on over 3,000 women, and what the researchers were looking at is something that has now become common knowledge, but at the time wasn't, and that was, does a woman have to feel desire, or we'll say in the mood, before she engages physically with her partner, or does she have to have desire, then arousal, then orgasm, and then rest, like a man does, right? It's all very linear. And so what they found out is that 69% of women, after being in a year-long committed relationship, did not have any sexual desire. In other words, they were not in the mood.
Right.
Ever. 69% 1 year into a committed relationship.
Is that pretty? Is that what we're considering as our normal now? Is that we just don't enjoy it? That we just don't want it?
Here's the thing. Like what you had said, we've named off several different things, and I haven't even gotten to a lot of other root problems like body image issues and myths that are out in the public, like that Sex in the City perpetrates. That everyone's having sex except for me, and so I'm broken. That kind of thing. I haven't ever had an orgasm in my life, so therefore I'm broken. So many women have this story, right? So what I always say now is, look, you actually, if you like your partner, so if you answer yes, I like my partner. In fact, I love my partner, and this is what I hear so often. I love my partner, and I feel so bad for him or her. And that's a really interesting thing. And I'll say, feel so bad, why? Well, I feel so guilty because I never want to have sex. And I loved him, right? And so what I'll say is, okay, so you don't feel bad for you, just your partner. It's like here's this whole part, and the woman will say, no, actually, if I never had sex again, I'd probably be fine.
Yeah.
Right. So many people, because I'm so tired. The kids and all of their activities and the PTA and work and schedules, and I just feel like I can't keep up. I'm overwhelmed. Sex is definitely the lowest thing on the totem pole for me right now. But I feel so bad because I know my partner still wants it. And he thinks it's about him, and it really isn't. And so what I teach them is, look, if you're waiting to be in the mood, you're going to wait until the next ice age. So how about if you do it this way? Realize that if you like your partner and you have been aroused with him or her before, and you know you like being with him or her, once you get going, then just do it. Do what Nike said. Schedule it in just like a date night. We're going to have intimacy, sexual, it doesn't even have to be intercourse. It's just intimacy of some sort. And I give all kinds of exercises for leading up to that if people are reticent about it. But really making sure that we have some sort of physical intimacy together at least once a week. And I'm just going to not wait to be in the mood. I'm going to go there and be willing to be aroused. Once I'm willing to be aroused, guess what? Desire follows after.
I feel like the head gets so in the way as soon as something starts to happen. magic is starting to happen and it's starting to flow.
Yeah. Good choice of words.
And then, thank you. And then my mind starts to go. And then I start thinking about bad things.
Like what?
Really, well, I would say in the past I would get really angry about whatever it would be. Whatever he said to me, whatever was done to me in the past, or I would start to get really angry. And it would turn from passionate to anger to nothing at all.
Right.
No,
this is the mental root cause. There are 5 root causes for low libido. One is mental, one is emotional, one is physical, one is spiritual, and one is your story. So your libido story contains all of what's in your libido map that led you to the place you are today with your sensuality and sexuality. And the events along that map are important landmark places that you can actually, that's why I teach this webinar called Your Libido Story, rewriting it. Rewriting history helps you to then have a better outcome in the future. If you keep having the same thing happen over and over again, you're not going to get a different outcome, right? And so when we think about that mental root cause, then that, whatever you're angry about, needs to be dealt with, what I say is with trauma release therapy, like having EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization reprogramming, or brain spotting, or hypnotherapy, to remove that block in your mind if you like your partner and you're safe. So if your partner is a safe partner and adores you and loves you and you feel like you have a relationship that you want sustained, then it's important that you get those mental blocks removed and start practicing a different way. Those are called automatic negative thoughts, what you're having, ants. And I always say they come marching in 2 by 2 to spoil the picnic. So, you can have automatic positive thoughts too, right? Where instead of going back to an event that was harmful, you can go back to an event where things with your partner were loving and you felt cherished and you felt safe, and stay with that in your body. Your body hangs on to every single part of your experiences in your past. So whatever happens, like if you have a thought that says, "Oh, this is bad," then wherever you first place that thought in your body will begin to contract. And after that, your adrenal glands, which are the little guys in the endocrine system that sit on top of the kidneys that respond to danger threats, they start firing off because your brain just said, "Uh-oh, this is a bad thing, we're under attack." They start firing up that cortisol. Well, that's for you to begin to flee from your attacker or fight your attacker. And so every bit of that oxygenated blood now is going into your muscles for you to start to flee from whatever's happening right now. When that happens, you're like a zebra being chased by a lion, and you think you're the next meal. And so it's not safe. That zebra knows it's not safe to stop and have sex and have a baby right now. It's not safe to reproduce if you're running for your life. Okay.
So then it feels like you're being raped by your husband. I think a lot of women actually feel like they're being raped by their husband.
That's exactly right. And it's the percentage of people that I told you about that have had trauma in their past and haven't dealt with it properly yet. So a lot of women will say to me, "Well, I had therapy. I've been in therapy for years." But oftentimes it's talk therapy, which does not do anything. Because when you're in talk therapy, the front part of your brain, your frontal lobe, which is your adult part of your brain that isn't even fully developed till you're 26 years old, is talking to the therapist. It's that reptilian brain, the one in the limbic system of your brain, the amygdala, that's in charge of fleeing the saber-toothed tiger. It's the dinosaur part of your brain. And so that one's all about survival. And that part of your brain is not present with the therapist when you're doing talk therapy. So that's the one that needs to be dealt with for this to stop interfering with time in your bedroom. Whatever's in your head goes to your bed, Nikki.
Whatever's in your head goes to your bed. That is so true. That is so true. Gosh, I am so thankful we are having this conversation right now, because I know that there are so many women out there that are just having so many aha moments right now. It's just incredible. And I know that there's going to be a lot of men out there listening to this. I really hope there are men out there listening to this, I want to say, because it's to have compassion for one another. And right? It's that if you're having issues in your marriage regarding sex, it's to have compassion and understanding of what one another are going through. And from what I understand, men are thinking about sex 24 hours a day.
Not quite, and it depends on the age that they're at. But yeah, it's about every 3 seconds or so, depending on the guy. That's very gender biased again. 31% of men, this is kind of a big number, 31% experience low libido at some point in their lives. They're not just sex machines, and so they also are affected by the same 5 root causes that I just talked about. Their testosterone takes a huge dive in response to stress that's chronic over time.
Okay.
And so there's a hole in the bottom of the boat when people have a hormone imbalance. Okay, and low libido is definitely a symptom of a hormone imbalance. And so if you're having hot flashes and night sweats and vaginal dryness and fatigue and weight gain and your hair's falling out and you have dry skin and you're moody and you can't hang on to your, there's no coping skill left for your stress, definitely a hormone imbalance for sure. But taking hormones, whether they're bioidentical or synthetic, it doesn't matter, is not the full answer, because all that's doing is going into the top of the boat and there's a hole at the bottom of it and it's all draining out. You have to patch the hole in the bottom of the boat. You have to get to the root causes. Is it emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, and your libido story? If somebody comes to me and says, I've had a great sex life all my life, I adore my partner, I just started missing my period. It's, I'm starting into menopause. I'm getting hot flashes and night sweats, and my sex drive has taken a crash. Then I know exactly. It's like, okay, this is clearly a hormonal imbalance, and it probably doesn't have that mental, emotional component to it. But the adrenal glands are pivotal in all of this, and so it's where I always start when I test women and men. So the same thing happens for men exactly. And that is, if you are that zebra being chased by the lion and you're always in the fight or flight mode, or many times a day at least, and your body is feeling it's in survival mode so often, then you are not going to be using your progesterone for sex drive. It's going to survival. And so you will become what we call estrogen dominant, which makes you gain weight in your torso. It makes you cry at every Hallmark commercial. You can't handle any kind of stress, right? And so when that happens, the answer is not to take more progesterone and call it a day, because in the end, what happens is you become dependent on those and you have to keep having more and more, and risks for other things can go up. We don't like giving you a ton of hormones because there's a cancer risk involved in that, depending on how you metabolize them. So we really want to say, okay, let's look at those adrenal glands, the ones that are responding to the zebra signal, and see if they're healthy. If they're healthy, then when you go through menopause, you've got something left in the bucket when your ovaries start to go to sleep. 50% of your progesterone is manufactured in the adrenal glands. If your adrenal glands are offline because they're over there being chased by a lion, then when you go through menopause, you're going to have all of those terrible symptoms, including a memory that will not work. So I get people in worrying about Alzheimer's disease, and we check their adrenals, and they're crashed out, and there's nothing in the tank. And we start to fix those again, and then they can remember. And they say, oh, my gosh, what an amazing thing this is. My memory's back, right? So I do give bioidentical hormones, but what I'm doing is I'm getting the bucket filled back up, and I'm patching the bottom of the boat. I'm doing therapy with them if they need it. I'm going through their libido story and helping them rewrite it if they need it. I'm looking at their cognitive beliefs. Do they have a good body image? Do they feel like sex is bad? Do they have, like, what is it going on? where they told never to have sex until they got married, and then when they got married, you can go ahead and enjoy it now, and they've never been able to do that. So
what happens with that? That's a great thing that you just brought up, because we've always, I wasn't, but, you know, society has been told in many cultures and many religions is that you have to wait till sex. I know a few people who did. So what happens with those people who do wait until marriage to have sex typically?
I was one of those, actually. I waited until I got married to have sex, and then I was excited. But my family was what's called sex positive. So there was sex positive talk in my family. So my mom and my dad were not reticent to talk about sexual issues, you know. So that meant something to me. It meant that I knew my mom and dad had a great relationship physically, intimately, emotionally, mentally. They shared it in front of us, not in the way that they had sex in front of us, but they would hold hands in public. They would, if my mom would walk by while she was in the dining room, sometimes my dad would pull her down onto his lap and just give her a hug and say, I just couldn't resist, you know. And or he'd come up behind her and put his arms around her and give her a kiss on the neck, and she'd giggle, you know. So it was obvious that they were still very madly, passionately in love and hot for each other as I was growing up. There was no doubt in my mind, right? And so to me, there was never this, ooh, is this a scary thing? Is this a bad thing? You know what I mean? Even though I was sexually abused when I was 10. So there's this real interesting way about sex positivity and sex negativity. And so you think about, like, what are you doing for your children today? Are you sex positive for them, or are you sex negative, or is nothing ever said and they have to make up something to fill in the blanks, and that's never a good thing.
I never watched my parents really kiss or hug or have that intimate relationship. Once in a while I would see them like hold hands on a very odd day, but that was just not something that was modeled for me. My husband, on the other hand, his father is extremely on the other side, where he's always coming up and grabbing his wife and my mother-in-law, and they're not overly affectionate, but they are. I could see that they're sex positive for sure, and so my husband was modeled something very differently than when I was modeled. But my husband comes up to me and he'll smack me in the butt, or he wants to have that connection with me, and he'll wrap his arms around me. Mostly it's like he's like a playful like kid. He wants to be like 15 again. He's not really sure how to get the girl. And, so then he'll come up and he'll smack me like he's 5. And so that puts me not in the mood, not in a sex positive.
So that's a very, very wonderful thing you just said, because here's what I always teach women is you have to communicate what you want. Women are so weird, Nikki. I can't understand them at all, and I'm one of them. We do not say what we need. We have been taught to take care of other people and never express our own needs, and I am here to say get over it. You have to tell your spouse what you want. So if you don't want to be smacked in the butt, say, here, honey, take his hand and show him what you want. Like, literally show him. Pretend like he's in preschool and has no skills. And if you had your preschooler who didn't have a skill, you would be so patient, and you would show your preschooler what to do. You would say, look, and you would keep repeating it. Think about teaching someone to ride a bike or tying their shoe or wiping themselves when they're going potty trained. You do it over and over and over, patiently and lovingly. And what do we expect from our spouse? We expect that they know how to read our minds. They do not. They do not know how to read your mind and pretend they're a preschooler and they don't have any skills with the romantic piece, because many of them don't. We all have our own skill set, and I'm not very good at a lot of different things that my husband's really good at, and so I expect him to be patient with me when he explains it to me. So that means I have to be patient with him, and I'm not always. I'm very impatient with him with certain things if I have to keep repeating it. So it's like, okay, preschooler, no skills, go back, remember that,
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like you have to just understand that they have to be taught to love you the way that you want to be loved.
Wow.
Teach them, guide them, talk to them, continue to repeat.
Mm-hmm.
Repeat, and keep doing it.
Right.
Honey, when you do that, I feel this. Not it makes me this, but when you do this, this is what I feel. And they'll be so upset about that you feel this way. Oh, no. Oh, I didn't mean for that to be that way, right? So say, instead, I want to feel this. Here's how, if you do this, this is what'll help me feel this. I want to feel joyful when you come into a room. I want to feel passionate, and I want to feel really excited to be with you. When you smack me on the butt, I feel annoyed. Okay? I feel something else. Like pick a feeling, whatever. What is it? What do you feel like when your husband smacks you on the butt?
Irritated.
Okay, so I feel annoyed and irritated. So, but I don't want to feel that way. I want to feel like you're trying to connect. I want to feel loved and cherished. So if you'll do this instead of that, then that's what I'll feel, and that'll be perfect, and it'll lead to something better later. So I always say training your husband is like training a dog. You have to give them treats. You have to positively reinforce them. Every time if you bring a puppy home and they piddle on the floor, you take them outside. You don't yell at them. You don't spank them. You don't make a big deal out of it. And then when they do learn to pee outside, you give them a treat, and you say, good job, what a smart puppy you are, right? And you just positively reinforce the heck out of them. It's the same thing you do with your children. You don't smack them if they miss the toilet seat, but when they do a good job and get it right in the middle, right, when they're being potty trained as a boy and they hit the Cheerios in the water, then you go, way to go, bud. You're getting to be a big guy, And so it's that positive reinforcement. So what is it what would be the treat for your partner if they do something right? Well, usually it's going to be like a little nutty in bed, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
that is for sure. My husband thinks about it constantly.
Love, right?
Yes.
What's that?
Yes. I said my husband thinks about it constantly. He is he's in that percent that it's like always on his mind. He's like raring to go, Right.
So if you are not raring to go, what is it that he's not doing for you that has you feeling resentful to him?
Right.
Well, I'm asking you that.
Oh, you're asking me. I have to honestly answer that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it that you feel is that he's not doing, that you're missing, that makes you not want to go to bed and give him what he loves? It's his love language. His love language is physical intimacy. What's your love language that he's not speaking for you?
Well, a lot of it is emotion for me. That we're lacking that emotional side and aspect of that in our relationship to where, listen to me on a deep level. I want to have deep conversations. I want to connect heart to heart. And so we speak two different languages. And
so here's the thing, Nikki.
Yeah.
I don't know what you mean by that. You have to be I do, because I'm the same. But if I'm a guy and I'm in preschool, that was way too ambivalent. You've got to get super specific, okay? This is what that looks like. I would like to start a book study together, just you and me, where we read the same book and then we talk about it after.
That's interesting. Okay.
So give him something that's actionable. It's what you do with your students, with your clients, right? Why do you give less to your partner? You want them to be somehow more excelled and enlightened than everyone else around you, and it's an expectation that they'll never meet, so then they're going to fail, so then you're going to be withholding sex and resentful and bitter. Right.
And there are times where I do feel so much love for him, and really I don't want to say that it's at times, but it is the truth where there are times where I feel less, where I feel more annoyed or angry or whatever may happen. He might have snapped at me, and so then my mind starts going with the blah, 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 that, oh, he did this, oh, he's like that, he never does this, blah, blah, blah. And so I never get the help that I need. I'm doing all of this by myself. I'm alone in my marriage. I'm alone raising our children. I have to clean the house by myself. You know, those things build up.
So where's the first time that you felt alone in your life?
Oh, geez. Well, I grew up alone. I'm an only child.
So then he triggers a button that's already big and red and sitting on the outside of you. So he doesn't know he's doing it, but he's triggering it. And the reason we get with the people that we marry and we date for an extended period of time is because they will push those buttons just like when we were growing up. And it's your perfect opportunity to heal that stuff. That's why we get with them. It's an opportunity to heal it. So what you do is you go back and you get that little Nikki, that cute little girl who felt alone, and maybe she's in her bedroom by herself, and you go sit with her in her bedroom as adult Nikki, who's a beautiful, wonderful mom and has attention to pay to her now. And you say, what would you like to do, baby? I'm here for you. I love you, and you're so amazing, and you are the only one I want to be with right now. Those perceived holes that we have inside of us where we think that we're alone, or because we're never alone. We're never disconnected because we always have our inner self. But if you're disassociated from that part of you and you expect other people outside of you to fill that hole, they will never do it 100%. And that's what we expect from our partners. We expect them to fill a hole that they don't even see and they don't understand. And they have their own. They have their own going on, right? So when you said sometimes I feel so much love for my partner, why do you think that got triggered, that deep, overwhelming love that you feel for him? What has he done at that moment that you feel that for him? He filled that hole. He saw you, right? He was there and he was supportive of you. And so you say, oh, I love this man, right? And you feel like you have a partner. Those of us that had abuse and trauma in our past get that abandonment stuff really easy. And it's not our partner's fault. It's inside of us. And so that's that, really going in and repairing your relationship with the little kid part of you and bringing your older, wiser adult self to the party and not expecting someone else to do that for you because they're never going to be there 100% of the time for you, ever. They can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it is our own responsibility to take care of this because it's definitely a huge part of life. We can't deny it. And so, that's why, Keesha, I've asked you to be a teacher for Women's Wellness Academy because this is such a huge thing in women's lives and marriages. And in order to have a healthy future with our children, they need to understand and model healthy relationships like you modeled a healthy relationship. And so your wisdom is being shared at Women's Wellness Academy, and so our students actually get to sit down and have a class with you. So it's very, very cool that you are a part of our school. It's very, very cool. And to sit down and have
honored, Vita. Yeah.
Oh, I'm honored because I know for women this is a huge deficit in their life. And so we start the healing process. And then what happens is they have a class, and you know what they're going to find is that they have to go deeper. They have to get the help that they're needing because just by taking a class, you can be knowledgeable and gain some wisdom, but at the same time, you're going to have that healing. And so that's when we go to Dr. Keesha for some wisdom and some guidance on how to really heal that part in our relationship, in ourselves. And so I just want to say thank you so much for being a part of Mega Wellness Summit and for being a part of Women's Wellness Academy. It's an honor to truly have you on both, and that you can teach our students and teach the world how to love sex again. And this is really a huge service you're doing to humanity. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And as you've probably noticed, we only did just a surface of what, diving deep into all those 5 root causes takes some time. And I have a 7-week webinar program called the LIBIDO Cure. And actually the next one that I'm launching is March 15th. So if anyone's interested in taking a deeper dive into this, then that's available. And then for those that want to learn how to do that testing I was talking about and become a certified integrative medicine health coach and learn the psychotherapy component, learn how to do the lab testing, learn the nutrition and all of the pieces that go along with healing this for other people, the Academy for Integrative Medicine is the website that I would send you to for the health coaching program, and that next enrollment is April 13th. So anyone that's really passionate about helping other people and wants to take that deep, deep dive and help others and themselves, that's also a really amazing program. Lasts about 6 months, and we go deep just like we just did today, kind of diving into what are those root causes, what's going on, what's the story, and can we rewrite it?
Absolutely. And so people can connect with you at drkeesha.com.
Right. And KEESHA, and it's drkeesha.com. And
I'll have all the links. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And also the Academy for Integrative Medicine. There's an Academy of Integrative Medicine, and that's not the right one. It's the one that says academyforintegrativemedicine.com.
Okay. I'll have that link for people to click on. Easy to find you, easy to join your programs. And today was such an eye-opener. I truly enjoyed our conversation. I even sweated a little bit.
Sorry.
Just because this is a conversation that is definitely needing to happen in my life. So Thank you for getting me to sweat and, get out of my comfort zone a bit and talk about sex, which has been,
Well, thank you for being vulnerable, Nikki. It shows how much courage you have and your willingness to go there, because I think when you're a mom and you have kids, it kind of motivates you to do that. It's like, you know what, I don't want my kids to have the same thing. So let's get this going. And I think that's a really wonderful thing about mothers.
Me too. And I know that helping mothers is definitely my first priority in life because, I am one, but not only that, is that we're helping our future. We're building a better future because our children are our future. So it's a great service that you're doing, and thank you so much. I really enjoy this conversation, and I know we're going to have many more, so it's not a goodbye. It's see you later.
All right. Thank you for having me.
All right, Keesha. Thank you so much. You have a wonderful rest of your day, okay?
You too.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.